Okay, so I had a dream like a little while ago, and there's three parts of the dream. The first part, I was in the water right by the ocean, and there were all these really nice houses that were built like right on the ocean. And they were all the multi-million dollar mansions. You don't build a junky little house right on the ocean. They were new and they were nice. And I remember basically I was like, dang, I wish I had a house like that. Wow. And it was like, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized, dude, any wave that comes along, anything that comes along is going to just crush these houses. And that's like the wise and the foolish builder. The foolish builder can build a multi-million dollar mansion, but if you don't build the foundation and put it in a location that's going to last, and everybody, the whole world was like, anybody who saw these houses was like 99% of the people were like, oh, look at that, wouldn't that be a great house to own? Oh, it's so big, and look, it's right on the ocean. And that's the way, as sometimes we look at people of the world and worldly Christians, like a pastor who's starts a church, and next thing you know, he has 3,000 members, and he's driving a Mercedes, and whenever he gets up to preach, it's like all this basic stuff that any Sunday school teacher would be teaching to a bunch of 5-year-olds. You're like, well, you know. But he's got all the money and wealth. So we look at that and we envy it, not realizing that he just built a big old house right on the ocean shore. Just saying. Aren't you better off? Let me ask you, aren't you better off having a little house at the top of the hill that's not going to get washed away in the first big wave that comes by? I just ate now. Now, then, all of a sudden, in the same dream, there was a lady that I knew from a long time ago, and she was at church, and I went to talk to her, and when she saw me, she was just like, "Oh, it's you," and then she walked away, like she was like, "Oh, you go away" or something, and it made me kind of angry because I knew I was about to tell her something from the Lord, and like her first reaction, somehow, she wanted to just walk away, like that, and I was like, "Fine." But I remember she walked into the door of the sanctuary of the church, and I hit the door. I went, bam! And that must have got her attention, because the next thing I know, I was walking out, and she was behind me. Anyway, I started telling her, don't you see the disaster coming? Don't you see the nuclear attack that's right around the corner? Don't you know what the Bible said? And she's like, huh? And I was telling her all the stuff that I have been putting in my videos, nuclear attack, day of the Lord, Babylon the Great falls, and then after that, the mark of the beast, and all this. And she was just like, what? It was like kind of like going right past her. And I remember specifically, I said, don't you see the alliance of Russia, Iran, North Korea, Turkey? I was like, those four nations I mentioned. And then I said, Obama's part of it. Don't you see that? Isn't it obvious if you look that there's this alliance happening? And I mentioned Russia. I remember I mentioned Russia, Iran, Turkey. It's like, don't you see this alliance going on? I said Syria too, whatever that means. I guess that's Assad. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, she was just like, I said, don't you feel it in your heart that what I'm saying is from God? And she was just like, huh? Like she didn't even, she was like completely just And I was like getting frustrated. Like, seriously, you don't even, like, none of this is getting through to you? And and then I said, don't you know in your heart it's probably going to happen in 2016? And again, she's just like, clueless. And then I remember I walked away from there. And now, when I was telling her this, when I had started to walk out, I had walked out into a parking lot. And so now I was telling her all that in the parking lot. And she was standing like right in front of her car or something. And I was like, don't you feel it in your heart? Don't you sense this? Isn't it there? Isn't it obvious? Like, to me, it's so clear. I've had so many dreams, and then the Lord has shown me so many scriptures. It's like clear to me. And I'm always surprised when somebody's not even in tune to even the slightest bit of that. Anyway, the next thing I did is I walked through the parking lot, and there was a group of guys, and all they were talking about is all their exploits with women. I remember I was just walking by, and one guy's like saying, yeah, what I do when I'm with a girl is I'll nibble on her ear, and then I'll rub her and then he was doing all this stuff, and the guys are like, yeah, that's awesome, dude. You know what I like to do? And they were just talking about girls. And then I was just like, ugh. I thought like I should witness to them, but for some reason I don't remember telling them about the Lord. And I have a sense that this was out in the church parking lot. And they were probably, I don't know, maybe they were like the young teenagers of the church, you know? I don't know. They didn't look like teenagers, though. They looked like early 20s, late teens, young men, the age that guys get together and talk about, guess what I did last night? Damn, she was hot. You know. And then the friend goes, I saw you with her. She wasn't hot, man. You crazy. And then they, shut up, dog. Well, she was all alone last night. I know. Whatever. You know how people are. Especially like, locker room talk. That's what they were doing. Locker room talk.